Hi, everyone. I'm here with Mark today. Hey, Mark.
Hi, Jared. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Mark Mohamedpour is a strategic communications executive, personal trainer, and health coach. His company, Chasing the Sun, offers health coaching for those who are looking to lose weight and keep it off for good. In 2007, Mark started a journey that led him to lose more than 110 pounds over 9 months, and he's proud to have kept that off since. He's determined to help others lose weight and live a lifestyle that would benefit themselves and those around them. And also, since Mark started launching his company in 2019, he's worked with people across the country to help them prioritize their health and wellness, reduce stress, grow in their career, and thrive. So, Mark, you got an incredible story. Let's talk about just how it began. I read on your website you were traveling, or I read on a blog article you were traveling in your 20s and you started to gain weight. Can you describe a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So most of my life, growing up as a child and through high school and college, I was overweight in some way, shape, or form. And when I was in junior high and high school and elementary school, I played a lot of sports. And by the time I got into college and I started my career, I definitely stopped exercising formally. And as I started my career and I was traveling a lot and I was working a lot, I just was starting to make some really poor eating choices. And I didn't know how to stop. Most of all, I didn't know how to reverse. So it wasn't even the challenge of stopping. It was that next step of saying, okay, if I'm going to stop, and then how am I going to lose the weight? And things have started to build upon itself. So I would be traveling a lot and I wasn't thinking about my eating habits. I was hanging out with my friends late at night. I would be ordering large pizzas. And Jared, not only would I be ordering them, but I would be eating the whole thing in one fell swoop. And it just got to a point where it was really impacting my personal and professional life. And little things would add up. I would have problems sitting in chairs in restaurants. There were multiple instances where I would break the chair. How embarrassing is that? It's awful. It's the worst. It's the worst feeling. Walking up a flight of stairs and knowing how you feel after you walk up a single flight of stairs, it's exhausting, just mentally and physically. I had sleep apnea at night. My girlfriend, now wife, would have to poke me to turn me over because I wasn't breathing. And I got to a point where I was not feeling very good about myself. I was not feeling very positive. My colleagues at work would call me Eeyore, and I'm a half glass full person, Jared. And for me in my 20s to feel that way, because I was feeling so negative, I knew that I needed to make a change.
And that change sounded like it got prompted when you proposed to your wife.
That's true. Exactly. So
It's a good influence on.
yeah. So in 2007, I was progressing in my career. I had a great job and great colleagues, but I was feeling miserable. And my girlfriend was just so supportive. And when I proposed to her December 2007, and she said yes, I realized, okay, I'm not just living for myself anymore. I'm living for somebody else. And I knew I needed to make a change. I didn't know what to do, Jared, to be honest. And I didn't have a great network of places to go. I knew that a personal trainer wasn't necessarily going to help me because it wasn't necessarily the exercise, it was the eating. So I really started to break it down. And what I did was I started examining my habits, and I looked at breakfast. So immediately after we got engaged, I started examining my breakfast. I used to go to the coffee shop every day, and I would have a mocha and a scone. And I said, okay, well, this mocha is 500 calories. This scone is 500 calories. By the time 8 a.m. would hit every day, by the time I get to the office, I would have already consumed 1,000 calories. And for those listeners of yours out there and realizing how much 1,000 calories impacts your body, especially all the sugar and just all the, all the stuff we don't necessarily really want or need, it adds up. And I not only had that thinking just for breakfast, but I looked at my lunch and my dinner and realized just how much I was overeating and eating the wrong things. But I knew I had to focus on one meal at a time. So what I did, Jared, is I looked at what I really needed, and that was caffeine. And I put need in quotes, but the reality is I needed the caffeine to help me going in the day. I switched to green tea. Now that's a complete 180 as far as taste is concerned, but I knew it had caffeine and I knew it was going to help fuel me for what I needed. So I cut my caloric intake as far as my drinking was concerned in the morning from 500 to 0. Then I looked at the scone. I realized that I needed protein, I needed something to keep me going, but I needed something that was going to taste good. And it was just around that time that spinach feta wraps were coming onto the scene at my local coffee shop and got married. I ultimately lost and kept off, I lost 110 pounds. So when we got engaged, I was 350, and when we got married, it was 240. And
wow.
it's one of my proudest moments.
You changed your life from being engaged to the wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
I stopped wearing size 4XL shirts and my sleep apnea went away. I started exercising. I was more confident in the gym when I was working out. And that definitely had a lot to do with it. I started to work out more, but it was really about the eating choices that I made and just taking it one day at a time, looking at where I was plateauing, making adjustments where I needed to, and just learning and building confidence in those changes that I was able to make and seeing it progress.
Yeah. And you mentioned 3 strategies on your website to help people lose weight in a sustainable way.
Yeah.
I do like how you're approaching this whole thing about looking at food and really with that learner's mentality.
Yeah.
Like learning. I think it's so important that we figure out what works for us. But I was wondering, we got 3 principles. Can we just dive into them?
Yep.
Cool. And then you can give a little overview and a little strategy on how to implement today. So you say prepare for tomorrow, today.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it really came out of the profession that I worked in. So I worked in public relations pretty much throughout my professional career, and we spend so much time planning. We spend a lot of time planning for the companies that we work with and the clients that we have, and helping to make sure that what we communicate is accurate and effective and is going to be received by the audience that we're trying to speak to. So, but along with that comes crisis. Something happens, and the reality is that we have to be prepared for a particular crisis to come up with our clients and the companies that we work with. And I applied that approach to working with my clients in health coaching. Because the reality is, Jared, a lot of us, we work a lot of hours. We have families. We have a lot of obligations. We're taking our kids to soccer practice and doctor's appointments. And I don't live everybody's life. I don't know the challenges that they're going through. But the reality is that if you can prepare for your plan B and you can think ahead, so that if you are planning to go to yoga class, Jared, let's say you're planning to go to yoga class Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 p.m., you know that you've talked to your partner, you've talked to your bosses, your colleagues, whomever you need to talk to let them know they need to leave early. You're going to be going to yoga class. You're going to be not available for an hour. You have to leave. You have to prep. You have to change. You have to do class. You have to shower. All it takes a lot of time. But let's say that you have to leave at 4:45 in order to commute and get to the place, and you're all ready to go. It's 4:30, so you're getting ready to leave and head out, and all of a sudden you get a text or an email from somebody. It could be a boss, it could be your partner, it could be your child's teacher, and said, Jared, we need to talk to you. We need to talk to you in a few minutes now. So you're not going to make it that yoga class. So what's your plan B? I talk to my clients and when I give workshops about this a lot, because we're in more control over how we overcome things than we think. Because in most of us see a crisis and crisis, I put this in quotes, we have something that really impacts something we want to do. And that we say, screw it, we're not going to go to that class. I'm not going to be able to exercise. That means I'm going to overeat. I can do whatever I want, and I'm done. So I want people to realize that if they can't make it to that class, then what are they going to do instead? I want people to constantly think about that and understand what is in their control. So that's my idea for preparing for tomorrow, today, is really thinking ahead and being strategic.
I hear you. It loosely reminds me of that Japanese principle, like a crisis is an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Kind of like to think creatively, to problem solve and come up with, a solution.
Exactly.
It seems it's exactly. Okay. So let's say, how does someone take that disappointment from the yoga class or the call coming up? How does someone take a disappointment when they can't do their plan and do a backup plan?
Yeah. And this is what I talk to my clients about. The reality is that no matter what they decide, I want them to go through with it. But what I want them to do is make a decision. So if somebody says that they can't make it to that yoga class and they decide they're not going to go to class that night, that's okay. As long as they know that they are not going to say, I'm really stressed out because of what's going on and I'm going to overeat, and I say, screw it, I'm going to start again tomorrow. Yeah. That's what I don't want. What I don't want is people to really be hard on themselves because they didn't make it to that class or that they're just too tired. Because I want them to really feel empowered, to know that they're still in control of what they can do. The other big thing that's related to this, Jared, why this is so powerful, is because we make literally 35,000 decisions a day. There's a stat out there that says we make so many decisions. And I think a lot of these decisions when it comes to our health and our wellness and our eating choices are when we're at our most vulnerable. Now, when people are most vulnerable, it really depends on the person. I'm more vulnerable in the evening after a full day of work. My energy is low, but that might be different for other people. Some people might be more vulnerable at 5:30 in the morning before they are supposed to go work out, but they're sleepy and they're going to stay in bed. People are different what I want people to do is understand, when are you your most emotionally strong, so that you can make those decisions when you're at your strongest. So when I give my workshops and I talk to my clients, I want them to really think ahead when you're the strongest, so you can make that decision. So you don't need to make that decision late at night or when you're at your most vulnerable. Also, when I talk to people about preparing for when they go out to eat at restaurants or when they're trying to make decisions as far as food is concerned, I talk to clients a lot about, especially if they travel, if they have business meetings, or if they're going to a family event, something where they may not ultimately control what they're making or what they're eating. But I talk to them about what can they control. So for instance, if they know they're going to a restaurant and they know what restaurant, they can go online and look at the menu. And before they get there, they can already have a sense as far as what they want. So they don't have to make that decision when they're at the most vulnerable, at their most hungry. They know that decision has been made for them.
I like it. Yeah, it really is important to, first of all, control what you can't control. I feel like that's a real big current through what we've talked about so far. And not taking some time to plan, and when you're rational and calm, and when you were in between your engagement and your wedding, Mark, did you implement this principle? Like, how did you, it seems like it came naturally to you to think this way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It came very natural. And I think it came through with my experience in my profession in public relations and just really thinking ahead. We constantly have to do that. There's a big misperception about our industry, the industry that I've been in, is that our role is to really kind of put out fires, and really our role is to help stop them from happening in the first place.
Oh, you're talking about like when celebrities, or like that. Yes. Okay, that's my stereotypical reaction.
Sure.
But
so celebrities, companies, they have a big crisis, and a lot of times it happens because we are not at the seat at the table, and we're constantly working to ensure that we are. And it's making sure that we come with the lens as far as, okay, if this happens, this is what's going to happen. And this is the playbook that we run. Companies literally have playbooks that look at what happens in an event of a crisis. And it's all about preparation. And so that's what we work on. And that's kind of the philosophy that I apply here when I talk to my clients. And it seems to resonate.
I like it. So I wonder if there's parallels for the other principle between work and this other principle, respecting your time, setting boundaries.
Yep. Jared, I have to tell you, all of us, no matter what profession we are, whether we work full-time in the business world, we're white collar, blue collar, we're a full-time parent, whatever, we have responsibilities. And those responsibilities vary. And there are child's doctor appointments, it's trips that we're taking, it's working with our parents who might be sick, and we're taking time for them and looking at all the different priorities we have in our life. We are always putting ourselves last. And I do this with the people that I give workshops on. I build a PowerPoint slide with the list of all of the groups of people that are in our life: our partner, our boss, our professor, our children, our children's teacher, everybody else. And then right at the bottom is me. And that's just kind of how we are as human nature, right? We want to provide for others. We want to help others. We want to heal others. And I think, though, that we have to sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, all the time, we have to put on our oxygen mask first. And part of that, from a practical sense, is looking at our time. I do not talk to my clients and tell them that they need to spend a half an hour every day to exercise, or that they need to spend 4 hours a week meal prepping. Because I can't tell every client to do that, because we all are living different lives. But what I can tell them is to re-examine the time that they're spending. So I ask my clients to do a calendar audit. And that's what I would suggest to anybody, is look at the last few days that you've had, look at the meetings, the obligations that you've had, and do some coding. Look at ones that you definitely had to be at. Look at meetings that maybe you didn't need to be at. And some, they say, well, it would have been good for me to be there, but maybe not. And then look ahead to the next few days or next week and really examine what points in time you don't need to participate in that you can give back to yourself. Now, people might be saying, Mark, that's ridiculous. I need to be everywhere at all times. I get it. Again, I can't control that. But let's dig deeper. Yeah. Let's say, for instance, that I have clients who have children who go to soccer practice and basketball practice, and they have to drop their kids off. A lot of them are waiting in their car. They're scrolling on their phone. They're taking a call. Okay, I get that. Now here's the question. Do you need to sit in that car? Or can you get outside and walk around a track or walk around somewhere and incorporate movement? So that's one example. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say, Mark, I have a lot of meetings. I have 4 hours of back-to-back meetings. I say, okay, great. So let's look at what are some meetings that you can do some walk and talks. So walk and talks, right? Very, very kind of approachable, easy way to incorporate movement within your control. Now, here is the next step that I talk to my clients about. Let's say you have a 30-minute meeting. Let's say you and I are having a 30-minute walk and talk meeting. What I want to get to a point, Jared, is that we have a very prescriptive kind of map and route of where we're going, and then really looking at landmarks on that route and say, we're going to focus on this topic between this landmark and the next landmark. So I want to get very prescriptive as far as how we approach our meetings and our engagement, and also knowing that we're going to be incorporating movement as well. That has worked really, really well for me in the past. It's worked really, really well for my clients. So those are my two big things are, one, examining your calendar, really auditing and really look at where you're at, where you need to be in. And then also looking at ways that you can incorporate movement during those times that you're really required to be there. One other thing, Jared, I'll say, a lot of my clients are business leaders, or they run meetings, and you're running, a lot of us run meetings in some way, shape, or form, whether we're running PTA meetings or meetings at work or something like that.
Yeah.
We set agendas. I tell my clients and people I run workshops, the next time you run a meeting, allocate a minute or two to do a breathing exercise or to stand up and stretch. You run a meeting, you're a leader. I think there's an opportunity for you to be able to show that you're acting like a role model. This is one of my other principles that I don't necessarily have listed, but it's one of the first things that I tell people is that you're a role model. You influence people. You may not realize it.
Oh.
To me, it's a big, big factor in building confidence in ourselves. So it's one of the first things when I run workshops is get people to check their egos in. We check them out a lot, right? Back to we want to take care of everyone else but ourselves. I ask people, who do you influence? Who are you a role model for? And it sort of gives people like kind of this little jolt, kind of a surprise. And for some people, it's a little uncomfortable, but I want them to get uncomfortable. I want them to realize that they impact people, because that impacts the confidence, that impacts the opportunity for them to take control of their lives. Confidence is really, really key in all this, Jared, as well.
Yeah. I think this is the first time, and if I'm understanding you correctly, and I'm pretty sure I am, you teach people how to do meetings. You help them think about how to do meetings from setting. When you refer to landmarks, I think you were talking about landmarks in a meeting.
Like a physical landmark. Let's say you and I are, you're thinking about physical landmarks. Meeting or something like that. I want to get very prescriptive when it comes to things like that. I've run thousands of meetings in my life, whether in person or virtual. And so I'm used to spending a lot of time preparing for meetings, trying to minimize the amount of time we spend in meetings. But a lot of meetings are also just gab sessions and having to brainstorm and discuss various topics and really get into the weeds and everything in between. And so I want people to really rethink the time that they're spending with others. It's required. You need to in order to build relationships and make decisions, but also realize that we don't need to be seated in a chair the whole time.
You can straighten and breathe.
Right. Our bodies aren't made to be like this, Jared. We were not built to work like this. And standing desks are great. I love them, but there's more that we can do. And for me, that comes from the top. It comes from our leaders really showing that they are making their health and wellness a priority, and showing those around them that they can thrive and still make themselves a priority mentally and physically.
Yeah, you're right, because I think that is an empowering perspective when you think about, hey, I lead this meeting. I have an opportunity to just remind people, and it's not business as usual. Just curious, what are some obstacles that people bring up when they're thinking about leading a breathing exercise? It might sound silly. It might sound scary. It might sound that's like, I'm not really leading it. Someone else is. There's a power dynamic.
Yeah. What
are some things that come up, and how do you get someone to dig in and step up?
I think it's focusing on just doing one thing. And it's not even necessarily a giant announcement. So I think part of it is how to build it organically within what you're doing. So my recommendation would be before the meeting to not send an email to all the attendants and say, oh, by the way, we're spending all this time doing this. It's saying, let's say, for instance, you and I are in a meeting with a few others, and I'm running the meeting. I say, you know what, everybody, I've been in back-to-back meetings for the last 2 hours. There's a lot going on. Can we just do like a quick breathing exercise for a minute and close our eyes, and I'll just lead it? And some people might think that's a little odd, but I think through the process and afterwards, you're going to say, I feel so much better, everybody. Like, how do you all feel? Was that okay? We feel like we're at a good place here. In my workshops, I actually use a GIF that has a dot that goes around to show people when to inhale, hold, and exhale and hold. So we do it for about a minute so that people can,
and
to breathe.
Back in the day, I was living in a Zen monastery studying meditation, and I met someone who became he was involved with mindfulschools.org. Mindful Schools, it's a chapter in the Bay Area up north in Oakland, and research based about how kids, they are way more focused.
Yeah.
If they get like 2 minutes or even 1 minute, just like ding a bell, have them sit, focus on their breath. I believe tons of research is starting to back this up, that your focus, productivity, et cetera, goes up when you do these breathing exercises. So cool.
Jared, you're absolutely right. We look at meetings that we're in, and we're on our phones and our laptops, and part of it is it's just kind of the nature of the business. And I understand that people have to multitask. There are some people that definitely try to, when they're leading meetings, say no phones, no laptops. And I think that it's always a best practice. Sometimes it's not a reality, especially in the business that I was in. And so it is looking for those points. Back to your original question about how to implement it, I think it's just little things at a time, making them feel organic. I think it's also a lot of times I talk to college students and new professionals, and I want to show them as well how to incorporate this, because my intent is for the future of our business leaders. And I'm talking primarily to my own folks as far as public relations, communicators, and marketers, but I think this applies elsewhere, that we can make ourselves a priority and we can still incorporate health and wellness and not worry about negative perceptions and why are we doing this, and because we need to start caring about ourselves. And I think it's a two-pronged approach. It's not only the leaders, but I want our students and new professionals to understand this as well, to understand that there's somebody out there that is thinking for them, and that saying it's okay to take care of yourself.
And thank God it's becoming more commonplace too, like this type of thinking in the workplace. And
exactly.
So can you tell me about your last principle, eliminate overeating for good?
Yeah. So Jerry, we talked a lot about being proactive and thinking about the decisions that we make. This is really looking backwards and examining what we eat and how we feel about it. So for instance, if I have a lot of chips or something that has a lot of sodium, I know that's going to stay with me for a few days. And I know I'm not going to feel great about it. So now I know that. And I want all of us, whether we journal or keep a diary or just have it in our head or use an app, whatever it takes, I want us to do some examination. It doesn't have to be formal, but I want you to look at what you've eaten and how you feel. I've never regretted not eating chocolate cake or having nachos or anything like that. But I do know that I can't restrict myself from having them. So I coach my clients, you can eat whatever you want, like literally. I just want you to really examine how you feel after you have that. And what are some different choices that you can make, whether it's around the quantity or the time of day or the frequency, something like that. You can make some adjustments and learn along the way. I think reaps a lot of rewards. I don't believe in cheat days, Jared. I don't believe in special diets unless they're doctor prescribed. I believe in doing what's best for you in the life that you're living. And I don't have all the answers for people, but I know how to ask the right questions to solicit what people need in order to lose weight, reduce stress, grow in their career, in their life, and thrive.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I admit, just reading on your website, I believed our philosophies were aligned. But sometimes when someone loses weight very quickly, I think, oh man, they're great for them, but maybe they're the exception to the rule. Maybe they're going to, talk about restricting and dieting. And so I really appreciate hearing this non-restriction and how foods make you feel. And really this core principle too of mine, Mark, is what I call the growth mindset, but identifying and learning and reflecting. And maybe that's why I'm drawn to meditation too. It's very inward. I had a question about expectations. Let's say someone is starting to really embrace this discovery. They're embracing learning from their food. They're embracing thinking things differently and trying things and experimenting and using their time. What should they expect? Should they expect to lose 110 pounds in 9 months? How do you talk about expectations, especially when it's coming from you?
That's such a great question. I did not go into my journey thinking I was going to lose 110 pounds. I also didn't know that I was going to lose more weight. Now I'm down to around 205, 210. It's the thinnest I've been literally since the 1980s, Jared. Since Ronald Reagan was president, I've never been this thin. And so, but I didn't go into it, knowing that. There were times during that 9 month journey that I plateaued. There's been times in the last 10 years where I've gone up. Now I've gone up to about 270 before. Most of the time I hovered around 240 or 250, but still, Jared, to keep that much weight off for that long, I was really proud of it. And there were times over the years, over the last 12 years, where I was okay with where I was at, but I knew I still needed to keep going. But, I would plateau, and it would take me days, weeks, sometimes months to realize when it happened. And a lot of it came down to exercise and some choices I made there. So I have right next to me, I have my Peloton spin bike. I've had that for about 3 years now. I'm a part of the community. I love it. It's what works for me. I've gone to a local gym down the street and do circuit training. I do video game on my Nintendo Switch. There's lots of different exercise type games that I love. It's what works for me. And that's what I had to get back to, is really understanding that not only that there are different ways to incorporate movement, but here's the other thing, Jared. I'm a certified health coach and personal trainer. I went through the American Council on Exercise. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I've said this publicly before, so I'll say it again for your show. As I was learning about health coaching and all the different things I needed to learn for the exam, one of the things I learned about was something called resting metabolic rate. Basically, the idea that by living and breathing and having this conversation, I'm burning calories. I used to think that burning calories meant I have to run a mile, do push-ups or pull-ups, and if I couldn't do that, I wasn't burning calories. If I wasn't
Come on. Damn, dude. What the hell? Come on, internet.
So part of it could be it's going to be around their eating habits and realizing that they're still burning calories by living and breathing. And ultimately, they're in control of their weight loss journey if they just really focus on their eating while they get the rest of their exercise and their movement going. So that was a big epiphany. I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I will. Because, and I talk to my clients a lot about this, and a lot of times when I talk to them, they don't think about it in that way. So I know that I'm not the only one. So that to go back to answering your question, that's a big thing that I talk to people about, especially when they plateau, is just realize that their body is really having to like kind of take a step back, especially if you lose a lot of weight very quickly, and say, whoa, what's going on here? I'm losing a lot of weight quickly. Then your body gets into starvation mode because it thinks you're withering away and dying. When in reality, like, you're ultimately in control of this, but your body doesn't know that. It's just going to take days or weeks for it to kind of acclimate. And during that time is when you need to set your habits so that when your body is reacclimated, you're back to your journey. A lot of people don't realize that. It's a big barrier, especially for people who do a lot of yo-yo dieting, or they actually have healthy habits, but they get down a few months and they lose weight, but they stall and they think that's it. They can't do it anymore. And then they say, screw it. So I really try to focus on mindset, especially around when people plateau, because I dealt with that a lot throughout my life. It took me a lot of time, but I figured out what works for me. And that's what I work to talk to others about as well.
Yeah. Plateauing. I think it's probably to be expected for sure in any weight loss journey that you're going to get to a certain stage and you'll need to reflect and try out new things to figure out what works for you. Just last question about this, and before we kind of start to wrap up too.
Yep.
What's the feeling when you plateau? It's frustration, or it's disappointment, or is it, okay, I've plateaued, and how to take your analysis farther? How do you plateau and then reevaluate?
Yeah.
How do you think?
And now I'm at a point where I know if I plateau, I know that there's adjustments that I can make. But for most people, it's just, oh, I can't lose any more weight. I give up. This is the 10th time that I've tried it now. I cannot do this anymore. And you're back to square one. So when I talk to clients a lot about this, and I my own experience, it really comes down to knowing that what you're doing is right, that you are really looking at the process, the journey. This is why Chasing the Sun is named Chasing the Sun. The sun gives us life. The chase is about the journey. It's not about the end goal. It's not about the North Star. It's about the chase. And so I talk a lot about process. I don't talk about, I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 9 months, or I want to lose 10 pounds in 2 months. That might seem like a safe, effective, appropriate goal, but it's not ultimately in our control. What is in our control, Jared, is how much, how much we eat, how much we move, how we focus on our health and our wellness, and examining that. And everyone has their own definition of what that looks like. I just want people to build the right process and the right habits so that they set themselves up for success, so that if they do plateau, they know that it's just part of the journey. It's a bump, but it's really about their own bodies and their own minds, and realizing that it takes some adjustment. And for some that takes months, some people it takes days. It's just understanding that. And then everyone's going to have a different way in order to resolve that, right? Whether it's examining what they're eating, maybe it's reducing sodium, maybe it's reducing sugar, maybe it's moving more, maybe it's a little bit more sleep, maybe it's drinking more water, right? You think more water, you're going to gain weight, but the reality is we need water. We need water. We're 70% water. And so it's so many factors, but I want people to realize that a lot of this is within their control, and patience reaps huge rewards.
I love it. And I really like your chasing the sun metaphor. It's funny. There's so many, like mine, eating. The big reason I chose enlightenment, I mean, I'm Buddhist and all that, but the light, and sun, and
exactly.
There's so much similarities between finding the joy, the inner joy of doing this, believing that this journey is worthwhile because it makes you a better person. It doesn't matter so much about the weight loss. It's the process.
Exactly.
Where can people contact you? You've mentioned before, what's the web domain? Are you on social media anywhere?
Yes. So my website is chasingthesunpdx.com. PDX is the airport definer for the city of Portland, Oregon, where I live, and I've lived in the area my whole life. So, but I work with people all around the world. So it's chasingthesun@pdx.com. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at markmo, MARKMOH. You can email me at mark@chasingthesun@pdx.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook,
And
everywhere.
you do group coaching, or
yeah,
something like that? You do group coaching too and stuff?
So we're recording this in February 2020. I launched this in September of 2019. I primarily do group coaching, so I work with people around the country, and we work on specific topics. Every 2 weeks, we look at mindset, we look at stress management, we look at why diets don't work and what does, how to conquer cravings, how to incorporate exercise at work. We talk about meal prep mindset, not about making the meals, but around what I was talking about in the beginning about how to create a mindset around what we're going to be eating going forward. And then, so I give people workbooks and video that they can review on their own, and then we gather together online to chat about what we've implemented and what we apply. And what I love about this, Jared, is that back to the idea that I don't have all the answers. I just I want to ask the right questions. When I'm having these discussions with folks, I ask questions, I facilitate the discussion, but oftentimes my clients will say, oh, I've tried so and such and such thing and it's worked really well. And then another client will say, oh my gosh, that's a great idea, I'll implement that. So it's not me giving all the recommendations, it's this group of people feeling empowered to be able to help make make decisions on their own based on the guidance that I'm helping to drive. I also work with people one-on-one, and those are people who, are want to have a much more kind of personal experience, a very, very specific purpose. And then I run corporate workshops. So back to my time in public relations, I worked with a lot of teams throughout my career. I've led a lot of teams, and I love facilitating discussions with departments. And I run through a series of questions and get them to think about what's in their control from a health and wellness standpoint. It's a little bit less about weight loss, although some people there are thinking about weight loss. A lot of other people are thinking about time management and stress, how they can work together. And it's wonderful when I follow up with those attendees and they talk about what they're implementing in future meetings and stuff like that. That's what I get. That's what I get real purpose out of this. A lot of this has given me so much more purpose in my life. I love my career. I love the people that I work with. Now I'm about the professional, I'm about the individual and helping them thrive. It's just been an incredible experience.
Thanks so much for coming on.